I went to the local library and looked up the medication I was taking. I noticed that, like many in its class, it was a CNS depressant, and back then, the PDR helpfully listed the lowest known lethal dose. I did some basic calculations and knew that I had more than the minimum needed to cause death. I kept the medication in my car, not the best storage place, but it fit into my plan. I didn't drink it all, but knew that alcohol is also a CNS depressant, so purchased a pint of vodka. I kept my cachet and scouted the area where I lived for a likely spot. I had strict rules about killing myself. I wouldn't do it so that others would be likely to witness it, particularly children. I wouldn't do it at home to spare my family the memory/blame of my death. I wouldn't jump off of a bridge because some good Samaritan might risk or even lose his or her life in an attempt to save mine. I figured it would be truly horrendous if someone else died trying to save me, but I lived. I didn't want that guilt. I continued to work, but life became more and more of a burden until one night I just couldn't take it anymore. I got in my car and drove off to an area where I knew I wouldn't be noticed quickly. I'd been calling a hotline and talking to a counselor there. I told her all about my research and recall how shocked she was to realize I enjoyed the intellectual pursuit of information. I called her one last time that night, drank the vodka, swallowed the pills, and drove off. What I hadn't counted on was how quickly the medication and alcohol would affect me. My last memory was that I needed to pull over because I was a hazard. I would never endanger someone else, but I blacked out before I could pull over. I did manage to get the car off the road, but the bumper was sticking out a bit, and that caused a passing cop to notice. He stopped to see if I were ill, and when he got to the car, he thought I was already dead. This part, of course, is hearsay. I was in a coma for 3 days. I woke up in ICU with tubes everywhere. My first thought was one of annoyance at all the tubes. I immediately pulled the one out from my nose, not realizing it was threaded into my stomach. I retched, but out it came. The IVs in my arms were another story. My arms were tied with bandages to boards, and bending them was annoying. That's how I realized they had IVs in them. A nurse came over and spoke to me, but I drifted in and out of awareness for the next few days. When I finally was able to engage in conversation, my cousin, who was a nurse, told me that had the paramedics arrived 20 minutes later, they'd not have attempted to revive me. So that's the unlovely story of my first and most serious attempt. I classify it that way because subsequent attempts have not resulted in anywhere near the same recovery time. I think it's because medicine is now better equipped to deal with such things, but I can't be sure. What I am sure of is that I have never made a gesture. I've always intended to die.